should Christians wear a cross?
And I'm being interviewed by a Christian wearing a cross, and she asks me, should Christians wear a cross? Well, no, I'm not going to tell you to, rip it off and chuck it away, not at all. So it's one of those things that, let's just put some perspective on it. First of all, wearing a cross can be done not simply because you are a Christian or a committed Christian. I live surrounded by Russian folks here, where I live in Latvia, who feel under some sort of pressure from the West and from Latvian government, etc. And a lot of them will wear a Russian Orthodox cross around their neck very visibly and prominently to show, I am Russian, by the way, because the Russian Orthodox cross has the footrest on it, little diagonal footrest. So you know that that is a Russian Orthodox cross. And they're wearing that cross, some of them, simply as a political statement, as a nationalistic statement. Whether they believe there's a God above is a slightly different question, let alone whether they're interested in the fact that Christ died for their sins, according to the scriptures. And you can have people wearing crosses as a good luck symbol, quite honestly. Now, of course, that sort of thing is not okay. My own comment is that I think that the cross is, that is how you read it in most Bible translations. But the Greek word staudos, that is translated cross, it does mean a tree trunk, a tree. And I myself think that Jesus was crucified not with his hands sort of out to the side, but with his hands over his head. He says that as the serpent was lifted up in the wilderness, so shall the Son of Man be lifted up. And he's alluding to how when Israel were sinning and they were bitten by snakes, they felt the venom coming up in their bloodstream. They were about to die. And Moses puts this bronze serpent on a pole and says, look to this. And if you believe, you'll be saved. And they did. And they were healed and didn't die at that point. And so Jesus is saying, yeah, that serpent lifted up on the pole is me lifted up on the, quote, cross, on the pole of wood. So Jesus and his death on the cross should dominate our thinking. That I'm not alone, that I've got someone who died for me.
Yeah.
I think, therefore, the idea, the concept of continually reminding ourselves of that, of putting a cross over your doorposts, over your doors, so you see it across in your kitchen, across here, across there, is in principle a good idea. I once worked many years ago when I was a school teacher in a Catholic school, and I found it very comforting in a sense that there were these crosses over the doors of every classroom, in the staff room, here, there, and everywhere. And yet I think I was the only person probably in the school who actually took it the right way, because for everyone else, this is a sign that we are Catholics. Whether some of those people believe there was a God above, well, a lot of them didn't, I don't think, from what they told me. So I think my problem with wearing a cross is not because I think it's wrong in itself. It's because in some contexts, it has been so misused. Just as the serpent on the pole came to be misused, the Israelites started worshipping it like it was an idol. And at the time of Hezekiah, when he reformed Judah, he called this thing Nehushtan and broke it in pieces because it was being worshipped as an idol. So that is the problem. However, if you're living in a non-Christian environment, like, for example, you are there in Finland, yeah, I think in your context, I think you're doing the right thing, because there you are living in a totally secular, even paganic environment, and you are up front showing people that, by the way, guys, I am a Christian committed to the cross of Jesus. It's the same maybe in some Indian areas that I'm aware of where most people are not Christian, but a little group of people are Christians, and they meet together in a shed, and on the shed they paint a cross. Yeah, to just show everybody, to advertise, hey, we're Christian. I think that's different. So it depends on your context. If I, in my environment, were to wear a cross publicly, especially a Russian Orthodox one with the footrest on, I would be making a political statement.
Yeah.
And it is a nationalistic statement that I'm Russian. Well, I'm not Russian, but if I were to wear it, then I would be making such a statement. And that is how it would be taken. So I think it depends on why you do it, what your motives are, and it depends on the surrounding understanding of it. As I say, in the village in India where basically hardly anyone is Christian, you and your few friends meet in a shed and paint a cross on your shed. Yeah, you're making a witness. This is where the Christians are. Come and join us. You in Finland, in a secular society where very few people are Christian, are making a statement that I actually am a Christian. And it's very brave of you to do that. And I think that's absolutely right. So long as we understand that this is simply a symbol, and a symbol of itself cannot save you, nor is it a talisman. It's not a good luck symbol. It's not going to save you of itself, which I think is surely fairly obvious. And as I say, my own understanding, I understand that Jesus didn't die on a literal cross, but that it was a piece of wood. It was a tree trunk. That's in a sense neither here nor there. What is here or there is that his death, that the Son of God loved me and gave himself for me, that God commended his love toward me, and that while I was yet a sinner, Christ died for me, the ungodly. That has got to totally dominate our consciousness. And we wander, we lack focus, we wander all over the place. And if we have continually before us that visual, physical reminder of that, I think that is no bad thing. I mean, you're wearing a cross around your neck and you meet, I don't know, some guy from next door and you start losing your temper because he didn't clear his garbage as he should have done and he spilt his garbage all over your steps or whatever. And if you're cussing the guy and then, oh, well, I've got my cross on, oh, whoops. It is a reminder that whose I am and whom I serve. And the principle that I live by is that I am not alone. I am loved by someone who died for me. So I think it is no bad thing, but let us beware that it can be abused. Let us be aware that of itself it shall not save me in a sort of magic sense. I mean, God is not a magician and he doesn't do magic through a bit of jewelry. But summing up, I would say, as we live, most of us, in a totally godless, non-Christian or post-Christian secular society, I see nothing wrong with it of itself. And indeed, I can see a lot of positives about it. Although, as I say, I think it does depend a little bit the context in which the symbol would be understood.
Yeah, it is a good reminder in your everyday life, and actually sometimes this cross helps me focus when I'm praying. It's because I can it's quite sharp on the edges. So if my mind wanders, I can kind of squeeze it, and it keeps my mind in check, keeps my mind in my prayer, in my chat with God, and it's great like that. But I did notice that people don't, at least my friends, family, they don't seem to think that the cross is anything for me but a decoration, because my neighbor, for example, was surprised when I was purchasing these markings to put in between my Bible pages, and she asked what I needed them for, and I said my Bible, I don't want to write in it. And she was confused, and she was like, you read the Bible, are you a believer? And I said, well, I wear a cross 24/7. Have you not noticed? People don't seem to notice this, but for myself, it is a good reminder, yeah, a good reminder in everyday life of Jesus' sacrifice.
And Philippians 2, let this mind be in you that was in Christ Jesus in his time of dying on the cross. So, if our aim is to have the mind of Jesus in his time of dying on the cross, that's a huge challenge to think as he did there. I mean, sure, why not daily remind yourself of it all the time, as you say, 24/7.
I think it's important to not rely on it, like you were saying, as a talisman, and to not have it be a false idol and make it an icon and lose its purpose of its meaning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would more for these purposes, like praying, I would more consider it kind of is widget a word? Like it's just something that to give me focus, to keep me in check in those times when my mind wanders, but it's definitely not the cross. The cross isn't who I'm talking to, who I'm praying to, and the cross isn't who I love. It's just it's an object that I wear.
The community that I grew up in, they would absolutely chuck a hissy fit if they saw one of their members wearing a cross. But a lot of them took to wearing the Star of David around their neck or on their ears, or having a sticker on their car of the Star of David. Well, that was so much better. Like, because they wouldn't place any talisman or anything like that in that particular symbol. But I used to always fascinate me when, okay, well,
yeah, I'm aware of that. That there is a preference to have a Star of David as opposed to a cross, and that's interesting because I mean a Star of David has got an inverted triangle on it, and that is definitely not a biblical symbol. And again, that symbol could be way misunderstood as I am pro-Zionism, I am pro-Judaism. And yet the people who wear it as Christians, I guess they mean I am committed to the hope of Israel, and I'm committed to the purpose of God to establish his kingdom in Israel, and so on. So again, you have a position where people are wearing a symbol that can easily be misunderstood, that has totally non-Christian associations, if not paganic. I mean, an inverted triangle, that's definitely paganic in some way, and it's totally not biblical. The Star of David does not figure at all in the Bible, and yet it's done from the right motives, I assume. And so it is with wearing a cross. On one hand, you can say, oh no, this is problematic, because it's got wrong associations, because some people abuse it. But on the other hand, no, but for me, I know what that means. And so this is the trouble with all symbolism, all visual symbolism, that it is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah, and something stuck to me what you said, that reminded me of it's a very personal thing to do, in that it reminds me of my relationship to God and to Jesus. It's not only because I want to present myself as a Christian, but it's a reminder for me. It's I guess like an engagement ring almost.
See, I was, it's funny you should mention this. I was driving to work this morning down the freeway, and a car whizzed past me, and on the dashboard of their car was this great big cross, like, I don't know, probably 1 to 5 scale of probably what was actually sitting on the dashboard of their car. And I looked over at it, and I thought, this is, I too can be very cynical, right? And I thought, that's their little talisman to protect their, save them from having a crash. And here they are, zoom, down the freeway, faster than everyone else. But the other day, you see, I was at a client's house, and I had to hang a crucifix with a little Jesus on it above the doorway. And I didn't think the same thing of that lady. All I thought was, oh, she's got some association with Christianity, and so I'll use this as an opportunity to, introduce the Bible app to her. So it's strange, even within myself, I noticed that some people I see have a cross, and I think, oh, they're just using that as a, good luck charm. And yet another person I see, I go, oh no, I think maybe they're using it to show an identification. I just figure that I just can't be so judgmental. I know that I had some friends in Sri Lanka, and there was a bit of persecution going on there at one stage, and some of my brothers and sisters that don't wear crosses, they took to wearing a cross, because they want, because they're not Sri Lankans, they're other nationalities, refugees, and they were afraid that if they went down to the markets to buy their food, that, you know, they'll be taken as being Muslim and they'd be beaten up. So even though they didn't normally have a crucifix around their neck, they took to wearing a crucifix when they went to the market for self-protection. Now, I could be cynical, and I was, and I thought in my brain, well, you know, how much faith and trust did they have in God? How much faith and trust did they have in God? You know? I thought, yeah, but I'm not them with their little baby in the pram going down to buy some spuds from the shop. I'm worried about their little baby getting beaten up. I'm not them, you see. So anyway.
I'd like to just add that there is, in some conservative quarters, a very strong feeling that you must not wear a cross. And I would like to say to those people that you've got to be careful lest you become what Paul calls enemies of the cross of Christ. You should not sort of hate the symbol of the cross. You may hate some of the things that it's been wrongly associated with, but you should be just very careful that you don't become enemies of the cross of Christ. I think they get to that position because they assume that the cross or the crucifix is the mark of the beast. That, to my mind, is a big jump of logic. And I think if you look at what the book of Revelation says about the mark of the beast, I don't personally think that it is the crucifix. It is the number of a man, and 666, and so forth. And it is a mark that is in the forehead and on the hand, etc., not significantly around the neck. I think personally that is a misinterpretation, and I'm afraid it's sort of an example of where people will take a verse out of Revelation, out of context, and then extrapolate their interpretation to the point, hey, you're wearing a cross, get out of our church. When, as we've been discussing, actually the wearing of a cross has got multiple possible meanings for the person who is wearing it. And so I would just sound that warning to anyone who's listening to the answer, that don't be so anti people like my good interviewer, Siri, who wears a cross. You know, it's not a sign that necessarily you're part of the beast, you're part of the whore, you're this, that, and the other. No, be very careful that you don't jump to that kind of extremism.
Once again, I learned so much when I went to Sri Lanka. I never did mission work, right? And I lived in this fake Christian bubble for so many years. I had no idea what Christianity was until I got outside of this little bubble here in Perth. Anyway, I went over to Sri Lanka. I learned so much, and it just totally shattered me, humbled me big time. Anyway, in Sri Lanka, they hire rooms or meeting places from landlords, and the landlords have crucifixes over all the doorways. You know? And I suspect that they do have it there for good luck charm, you know, so they can get their monthly rent. Well, there's my cynicism again, right? But so we go into the meeting hall with our brothers and sisters over in Sri Lanka, you know, and there's crucifixes above the doorway and on the walls and what have you. No one thinks anything of it. All the missionaries that leave from Australia here and go over there think nothing of it. Because it's in the context, you see. Well, I'll tell you what, if they went to somebody's house here in Perth, Western Australia, and they saw a crucifix there, oh, they'd be up in arms. So yeah, I just find it very bizarre that, you know, those same people who do missionary work over in Sri Lanka have no problems with it at all, you know. But come back to Australia, and oh dear, it's all completely different.
So did that answer your question, a cross-wearing interviewer?
Yes, it did. Thank you both.
So don't you keep that cross around your neck.
Yeah, I need to shine it actually. I see it's gone kind of. Toothpaste will help with that, apparently.